Hello everybody, this is Frank, Busa Frank. I ride the black bike, the black Busa. We're seeing this video taken from the camera on Danny's Aprilia, and right now we are at the farm that I work out of, and look at the sky. You can see it's not pretty. We hadn't even planned to go riding today. I just spur of the moment kind of asked Danny if he wanted to come along with me to the farm quick, pick up some info, and then from this point we would head out to go get something to eat. Now I want you to take notice that Danny's fuel light just come on. That fuel light has actually been on since the end of our ride last weekend, so it's been on since then, and in addition to the ride here from Danny's house and the ride from here to the diner where we had intended and eventually did eat, that fuel light's been on. So I knew he was low on fuel, and as a matter of fact I even asked him, I think 2 times the morning of this video, if he wanted to stop and get fuel. He said he'd be fine until we got to the diner, and I figured he'd know better than me how much gas he had. Look at that sky, boy, it was nasty out that day. So anyway, we're on our way from the farm to the diner at this point. So we'll be making a right out of the lane here, heading towards Hunterstown. And we're actually coming up on a spot here that I say, the reason I say it's a pivotal point in this little ride from the farm to the diner is that we're coming up to an intersection, which is the intersection of 234 and Stony Point Road, which Stony Point is the road that we're on right now. And the reason I say it's pivotal, and you'll even see as we come up to the stop sign that I stop and I ask him which direction he wants to go. Now if we were to go straight, that would take us to 394 and directly to the diner without having to get on Route 15. It's a longer ride in distance and in time, but it's a lot funner. Here I'm asking him which way he wants to go. He says he doesn't care. I decide to go right, to take 234 straight out to 15, and then it's 4 miles from 15. From 234, it's 4 miles down 15 to the next exit. It's one exit to the diner. And again, here I'm thinking about his fuel. I'm choosing the shorter route. Okay, here we are coming up on Route 15. We're going to make our left-hand turn on the Route 15. And I got to tell you right now, I'm in my truck editing this video at a rest area in Connecticut, so any outside noise I apologize for. Here, Danny, it looks like, I'm thinking Danny's going to pass me and take the lead, but he backs off and he doesn't, which turns out to be a good thing. So here we are merging onto 15. And not doing anything crazy. Yeah, we're speeding, I think at one point Danny gets up to almost 100 miles an hour, but I'm only doing like 90, 95, something like that, so he backs off a little bit. Again, I was thinking maybe he was going to go around me, but in the long run it was a good thing that he didn't. And you'll see ahead of us here this line of cars, and in particular, the car that's in my lane right now is the one that kind of throws me off. You'll see him change lanes up here. We're coming up on a little bridge, and on the far side of this bridge, you see that car changes lane. Now I'm watching that car, and as I'm watching that car, we get to the end of this bridge, where just so happens that trooper is sitting in a little depression in the center, and I didn't see him. Danny sees him. He immediately slows down to a respectable 87 miles an hour. 86 now, but he keeps about 86, 88. And that cop waited until we got over the hump in the road here before he pulled out. That's what Danny said. So I was oblivious. I had no idea. And at this point, I'm not even really, I'm just now starting to figure out that Danny is not with me. So the first thing I'm thinking at this point here is he's running out of gas. So I get over, I slow down and I get over, and I'm looking at him, but he's not flashing his high beams, he's not hitting the shoulder, he's not waving. So I keep going. And at this point, Danny starts backing out of it more. He sees the cop coming, okay? And you'll see when he slows down to almost the speed limit, that's when the cop throws on his lights. Boom. The lights just came on. There goes the cop. The cop waited until he was almost on top of Danny to throw the lights on. So I see the lights, and the first thing that comes into mind is just to drop 3 gears and take off. Just lose it. The second thing that came to mind was, I wonder if he got my plate. Because the technology that these guys use, the equipment that they have, the plate reading equipment that they have is good. I mean, they can pull your plate from quite a distance. So I'm thinking, you know, does he have my plate? And running along with that idea, even if I do get rid of him, I lose him and I go home, the guy could be sitting in my driveway. And if not that, you know, from this point forward, am I going to be getting pulled over for going 5 over every time these guys see me? Because I only live about 3 miles away from the trooper barracks, from the state police barracks, which is right off of this next exit. Here's our next exit. Now, if you watch closely down on the other side of the overpass here, you'll see the cop getting on going south. You'll see his lights. Oh, there he is right there. That's an SUV cop heading southbound, I guess, to get in front of me, which would have been pointless if I had decided to run, because I would have been way past this point by now. You'll see another cop coming up here, which sees Danny. Right there he is. He actually shuts his lights off and turns around and kind of follows Danny into the parking lot here at the diner. This is where we were going. This is where we were going to eat. Danny told me later, once I got back to the diner, that it was like kicking a hornet's nest, that there was cops everywhere. And if you watch this video to the end, you'll see cops coming and going on the thing here, because he didn't even turn the camera off. From the point that he takes, there he is. There's that other cop. He's coming into the parking lot. From the point that he takes the key out of the ignition here, it's 12 minutes, a little over 12 minutes and 12 seconds before he feels that it's clear enough to come back out and turn the camera off. But at this point, that cop is driving around the parking lot here, I'm guessing, waiting on the green light from the trooper that initiated my stop, waiting for the green light from him to go ahead and make a stop on Danny. But the trooper that was with me told me that he didn't get a reading on Danny. He only got it on me. So the police never even initiated contact with Danny, which is a good thing. That car going by right now, I think, is my wife. She went looking for me. What benefit her intervention could have done for me, at least in her mind, I have no idea. And thank God for small miracles that she went south on 15 instead of north. She went the wrong direction. Because most likely what would have happened if she would have showed up, most likely they would have arrested her and let me go. She would have been in cuffs and in the backseat of the car, and I would have been, set free. But anyway, at this point in time, I'm on the side of the road with my trooper, and by the time he got out of his car and started walking up to the bike, I had already gotten off the bike and was in my underneath the seat, getting my registration and insurance out and stuff. And he walked up to me and he introduced himself as Trooper Palmer, I believe it was. And he says, the reason I pulled you over today was you were going a bit fast. And I said, no. And I saw just a flicker of smile on his lips before he said, well, I clocked you at 91 miles an hour. And I said, that's not possible. I said, this bike is governed. And he looked at me deadpan and he said, what, at 180? And I said, 64 miles an hour. And he started laughing. And then I started laughing. And then here we are, good guy and bad guy on the side of the road, just laughing like idiots. And it was a good way to start off contact. You know, I feel if you can get them to smile or laugh, you're on the right path. So he took all my paperwork and he went back to the car. And again, like I said, you'll see a few cars coming and going, a few state police cars coming and going. Now, I don't know which ones they were, but at some point there was another sedan with two troopers in it that showed up alongside the road. And then I believe the SUV cop that had initially went south, also, there goes one right there. It might have been him. The SUV trooper that went south eventually turned around and came back, and I had three of them alongside the road with me on Route 15. You know, you'd have thought I was on the 10 most wanted list or something. They were everywhere. But Officer Palmer, the one that was with me, apparently told them just go ahead and forget about it. You know, everything's cool. So they take off. And after he got done running my license and everything, he came back and explained the ticket to me. He didn't let me go scot-free. He wrote me up for doing 75 and a 65. But then in comments, put the 91 that he clocked me at, 91 and a 65. So he cut me some slack, which I thanked him profusely for. And then he thanked me for not making him chase me. And I was honest with him. I told him, you know, the thought had crossed my mind when I first saw the lights. I thought about taking off. And I told him, I said, if I'd have taken off, he'd have been hard-pressed to even catch sight of me again, let alone catch me. And he said he knew. Now, I don't know if he just said that to agree with me or if he actually thought that, but I told him my concerns about whether or not he had gotten my tag or not, which he said he did. So that was a good thing that I did pull over on that front. But then I told him, I said, you know, he wouldn't have caught me. Even with help from his friends, he wouldn't have caught me because I'd have been gone, you know. He'd been lucky to catch sight of me again. And then he said, he started talking to me about a pair of bikes that he had initiated a stop on earlier. Now, I don't know what he means by earlier this season or when, but it was two bikes. The one guy was an experienced rider that knew the roads, and the other guy was a not so experienced rider that didn't know the roads, and that ended badly. The second guy wrecked. And kudos to the first guy, he stopped to help the second guy, but they both got arrested anyway. But at least he didn't leave his buddy hanging. And that's another thought that I had when I initially decided to pull over, is that Danny didn't have any gas. I knew that if I were to take off, Danny couldn't go nowhere. He had no fuel. Matter of fact, he told me later that he put 5.2 gallons in the tank, and it's only a 5-gallon tank. He put more gas in the tank than it could hold. That's how low on gas he was. So, but anyway, I told the cop, and we were sitting there talking. We ended up talking on the side of the road for about 10 minutes. But I told him, I said, you know, it's some of these younger guys, and Danny and I are older. You know, we've got some experience. But I told him some of these younger guys that end up taking off, they go into that fight or flight mode. You're no longer riding fast, you're running scared. There's a big difference between riding fast and running scared. I would have just rode fast. I wouldn't have even thought about him being behind me because he wouldn't have been behind me. And I would have still obeyed all the traffic laws, stop signs, red lights, and one-ways and stuff like that, because, these guys that run, they'll blow right through stop signs and red lights and everything else, and that's how you wreck yourself. That's how you get hit by other drivers. That's how you get caught. And that fight or flight, that running scared or riding fast, is a completely different ball game, and he agreed with me on that. And then we started talking about, how I pay attention to what's going on. I told him, I didn't see you because I was watching that car that I was passing, And he says, well, what do you do? Do you look at the occupants? I said, I look at everything. I'm looking at the driver. I'm looking at any passengers. I'm looking to see if they got a car seat. I'm looking in their mirrors. I'm looking in their rearview mirror. I'm looking at their tires. I'm looking at everything. But that is that. If you watch this to the end, which I'm probably going to cut the end off of it because this is just boring, but Danny ends up coming back out. And like I said, I wish I would have had my camera on the bike and rolling, not to catch any video, but just to catch the conversation that I had with this trooper. He was pretty cool. He cut me. He didn't let me scot-free, but he cut me a big chunk of slack. The difference between 75 and a 65 and 91 and a 65 is tremendous. So I thank him for that. At the end of our conversation, I shook his hand and I told him to stay safe. And I rode on up to the diner here, and we ended up waiting on my wife to get back from looking for me. And we sat down and everybody had brunch. So it was all good. We went home. It rained the rest of the day pretty much. So we'll be back at it this weekend. Hopefully we can get Timmy on the 750 Gixxer to come along. Maybe we can get a ride planned. And we'll have some fun this weekend. Away from the cops, away from Route 15. So thanks for watching. Take it easy. Be safe out there. And mind your manners.